Food Security, Sustainable Food Systems and Regenerative Agriculture is chaired by our chairman, Alan Dukes, who is as I said, he's the former Minister for Agriculture here in Ireland, with Chinese Ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Zhao Yuan, and then the Deputy Head of Mission, Mrs. Sahadatun Donatirin. I still call you Ibudana. I'm sorry, it's much easier, Maaf. And then we have James O'Connor, TD. James is the Chairman of the Oireachtas Joint Committee on Enterprise, Tourism and Employment. James, you're very welcome again this morning. Thank you sincerely for joining us yesterday in Tagus. I think it was quite an intense session. And one of the things I love about my job is when you're with people who are much smarter than you, because you learn so much. And yesterday in Tagus, we learned so much, and I'm sure we will today. And then we have Nobumitsu Hayashi, who's the Agricultural and Food Division Director, Japan External Trade Organization, coming here from London as is Ibudana. And I understand, Nobu-san, that you're seconded from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food in Japan, is it? To London. So, yoksa. Okay, so without further ado, I pass you over to our chairman, Alan Dukes. Ladies and gentlemen, could you welcome Alan Dukes on the panel?
Thank you, Martin. Is this working? Good. Thank you for the introductions. We're going to explore a few different topics in the panel just now. Food security, interactive operations in agriculture, and we'll see where we go from there. I have to say, I'm very gratified to hear that Noel has been such a fan of mine for so long. Pity you didn't tell me more about that when I was in politics, Noel, but there you go. One of the first things we want to look at in this panel is the whole issue of food security, which I think is something that is becoming of more concern given what Noel has been saying, particularly about the effects of climate change. Ambassador, my first visit to China was in 1992. And the vice chairman of the People's Consultative Assembly told me on that occasion that 1991 was the first year that China had been self-sufficient in food and self-sufficient in textiles. Now, self-sufficient doesn't necessarily mean you don't import or export, but the volume is there. What is your government's view now on how it needs to address issues of food security, given, number one, the difficult trading climate we're all experiencing now, and number two, climatic changes and competition for other uses for land?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. And like you said, China in the past is very poor. And you just said after 1991, we are self-sufficient in food. And it's actually, after the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, at that time we have a very big population. Now we are still we have a big population, the second in the world. The first one is India. To help our people have enough food is the biggest task for the ruling party, the CPC. And after almost 40 years after we adopted the policy of opening up and reform, we have made great achievements in the food sector. So now we are self-sufficient, and also we can export lots of food to the world, and also we import lots. So CA is the top export destination for Ireland. We buy your dairy products, and also seafood, pork, beef, lots of agricultural products, and also we export our high quality agricultural products to the rest of the world. So in Chinese, we have a saying that our food is coming from the sky. That means in the past, we are more dependent on the natural resources, on the climate naturally. So at that time, the food technology is not developed. So we are more dependent on the natural resources. But now with the development of the agricultural technology and science, we have improved a lot. And after the opening up and the reform, we send lots of students to the world, to the United States, to the European countries. We learn a lot from the advanced agricultural country. So we gain lots of techniques and improve our food industry to make our people self-sufficient. I think maybe someone know that our chief of the chief of the FAO is from China. He is graduated from the Netherlands. He is an agricultural expert. And like this kind of students, after the opening up and reform, we send lots of students abroad and gain a lot to help them back to China to make achievements in our food sector. So now we are self-sufficient, and we make great achievements in advanced food sector. And also we still driving our efforts to learn from the other countries to give us people a better life in the agriculture sector. Thank you.
If you don't know, if I may come to you, Indonesia is a very ambitious country, very populous country, with ambitions to grow very quickly, with a great population pressure. How does your government see issues of food security? And incidentally, I have to say, I'm sure people would agree with me that we have great sympathy with the difficulties that some of your people have had in the last few days with a volcanic eruption, these kinds of things that come and disturb the whole ecology. There's great competition in land use in Indonesia as between agriculture on the one hand and mineral extraction on the other. How is your government dealing with that in the context of food security?
Okay, well, thank you, Alan. Firstly, I would like to greet Minister Grealish and looking forward to your visit in Indonesia soon after Vietnam and all these East Asian country. Thank you, Alan. If I may, for colleagues who has not known what is Indonesia look like, so with regard to this food security, first, I need to tell you that Indonesia is the biggest archipelagic country, lies in the equator. That's the first fact. And then the second one, we are prone to every kind of natural disaster. Some even call us the laboratory of a natural disaster of the world, where you can learn every kind of natural disaster in Indonesia. I'm not proud of it, but that's the fact of it, being lie in the ring of fire in the Pacific area. And then the third fact is, we are the fourth largest populated country in the world, with the population now reach, I think, 280-ish something million, the fourth after China, India, and USA, and then Indonesia. And then the last thing, we are still proud to call ourselves the agricultural country, because our main community is still agricultural and forestry communities. So, taking into that all situation, it is, I can say that the food security is not only the global agenda, but it's our main, always will be our main agenda, national agenda in Indonesia. And to secure this food availability for our community, we collaborate right now, sir, with all stakeholders that we can think of, all the NGOs, all the farmers, all the private sectors. Looking forward also later on our collaboration with the Ireland, especially also to promote nutrition and sustainable agriculture. We cannot not talking about this, taking into account all that kind of situation. One of the government flagship program currently is the nutritious meal program. Why do I said that? Whether the government put it as one of its flagship program, because of the 280 million population of Indonesia, almost more than 70% is the young generation, children, school students, all of that. So securing the food security is securing our future. That's what the government thinks. So despite all of the rivalries between the mining and everything, this is what we are going to pursue, Alan, definitely. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, Hayashi-san, is an issue in Japan also, competition for land. I think I've heard, is it 70% of Japanese farmers are over 70 years of age? And there is a difficulty in ensuring continuity in rice supplies. What's the view of what needs to be done to ensure food security now in your country?
Thank you for this opportunity. Food security has been a top priority, and one of the top priority in Japan. An old Japanese phrase said that we learn courtesy when we secure enough clothes and food. The phrase comes from China. It has often been related with stability of the nation. However, until recently, the definition of food security has not been settled in the legislation in Japan. However, for a long time, food security has been assimilated as the stability of food supply. At the same time, we see it too important to supply food by ourselves. Therefore, some people, even now, believe that food security should be realized by raising the self-sufficiency up to 100%. But in reality, it is not. It is not possible due to the land area. Recent change was brought especially by the Ukrainian war. The rise of wheat price suffered the lives of poor people. Meantime, the suspension of fertilizer from Russia and Belarus caused the surge of the production cost for farmers. Through this food crisis and the change of international condition, including the climate change, we drastically revised the basic law for food, agriculture, and rural areas. Food security was redefined as an enough food for every citizen, not as for the nation as a whole. Along with stable food supply, physical access, economic access, and access in emergency is included in the definition of food security now. In addition, sustainability is the key essence of the new basic law to establish an environmentally friendly food system.
Yeah, thank you. James, I think we have a different view of food security in Ireland. We export so much that we're never worried about how we're going to feed ourselves. But nevertheless, there are issues here of competition for land use between farming and solar farming, for example, and the use of grassland as fuel for biofuel. Now, mind you, I think farmers who never fail to exaggerate these things are kind of pushing up the problem a bit. But do you see that as an issue in how we go about developing our food production and our exports in the future?
I think, in short, yes. To give a more long-winded answer to it and give a more thorough answer, I think we need to recognise in Ireland we're a small country of just 5.4 million people, and the great cliche phrase we hear so often when we travel around the world as politicians representing our country is that we do punch above our weight. But when we visit countries throughout Asia and North America, The importance of what Ireland does for food security internationally cannot be underestimated. And I think there needs to be recognition as well that the world is going in a much more unstable direction than what was the case 15 or 20 years ago. And I think at a government level, Alan, I think we need to recognise perhaps in that there is an important opportunity to take stock that Ireland could become a very significant player in negotiations. You know, you look across how food prices have impacted global instability, for example, the Arab Spring, with the massive increases in grain prices at that time and how it spread to huge political uncertainty throughout the Middle East. And there are other countless examples. You know, the war in Ukraine brought a very rude awakening when we saw the rapid cost increases in fertilizer. Something from a person living on a dairy farm I didn't realise, but Belarus was a very significant producer of compressors, a very key component of milking parlours and for many other industries in Ireland. But there were a lot of different areas of the agri-food industry that were very heavily impacted. And on top of that now, we're now dealing with a very dangerous escalatory situation around trade with tariffs and how that can impact what's going on. You know, I think of my own constituency of Cork East, we have the Arlesburg cheese being exported to the United States and casein, you know, the significant risks that may have. But I think the government overall, you know, needs to take stock that Ireland can play a role in food security, perhaps in the way that the United States and France, you know, play a role in armed security and other industries that they have domestically. And in that, you know, there is a very important opportunity diplomatically for us as well. I think on a humanitarian basis as well, you know, with global warming, we've just heard from the Indonesian representative here today about, you know, international emergencies. I think the government has to step up to the plate there as well in terms of how we can play a role in zones that need humanitarian support. I welcome the fact that, you know, there's significant thought being given to the Defence Forces securing a multi-role vessel for allowing deployment of humanitarian aid. So, you know, this is the context of the world we're now in. It feels very much like a repeat of history of the 1930s Europe, unfortunately. And, you know, we can't take today's economic success as a given forever, but food security is just one of those items that has very rapidly come back to the table as a consequence of the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you, James. I've been reading lately some of the forecasts from world food experts of what the effects of climate change are going to be. And they feel that in the path we're on now, we're looking at the potential for very substantial reductions in cereal yields, and particularly in rice yields, not only in Southeast Asia, but also in parts of the American continents. How do various governments feel about how they can modify their agricultural development programs to take account of these risks to food security? Hayashi-san, has your government any plans to look at how to deal with this issue?
Okay. To maintain the food supply, we must develop the technology to secure the food supply. We find some technology to develop the research. Sorry. Japanese government made Midori strategy in 2021, and next year the Midori Act was enacted. The Midori means green in Japanese. This strategy is for sustainable food system in Japan. Based on this strategy to foster the innovation of technologies, SBIR, Small or Startup Business and Innovation Research Program for agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sectors has been firstly introduced in coordination with the Midori strategy. One of the example, is development of biostimulant for agricultural production in severe dry, high temperature conditions. 1.1 billion yen, equivalent to the 660 million euro, was funded for that.
Ambassador, China has some issues in this area also. In northern China, there's a problem of desertification in certain parts. And in southern China, you have temperature effects on climate and storms. Is there a program to identify ways of remediating this kind of threat to sustainability?
Yes, by addressing to the climate change in terms of the agricultural areas, we have adopted many measures. Like you said, in the north and in the south, they are experiencing different situation. Actually, in the north, something has changed. Although it is facing a problem of desertification, and now we have lots of technologies to plant trees around the desert and also around the farming area. So the things is changing better. And in the south, also some special research are done on it. So for the first one, it is very important to use the technology. So that is will be great helpful for the humankind to be addressing to the climate change. This is the first point. The second one is international cooperation. You can see lots of programs we have been practicing with the agricultural advanced countries, including lots of European countries and the United States, and also other countries which are advanced in this regard. So the climate change is a global problem. So we need to drive all countries' concerted efforts to be stand together, to be facing for that problem. We need a close international cooperation and also the technology. Yes.
Thank you. Ivudana, we tend sometimes to look at agriculture on land. In your country, I think fishing is an extremely important activity also. And recently there have been some attempts to get a more rational approach to the conservation of marine resources. How important is that for you in looking at the issue of food sustainability?
Yes, thank you, Alan. Well, for us, we are now developing what we call the sustainable food estate. Sir, the food estate is the concept is to harmonize or to have a kind of land utilized comprehensively for a fishery, for crops, and for livestock. So we combine that, and we use the unused land, not opening a new one, and to really develop it with collaboration with international organizations, something like that, just to make sure that we have all kinds of food availability for our population. And also, same with Japan and with China, maybe we are also blessed with a young and creative community that develop the startups, develop all the application, develop the innovation to have this new farming agri-tech, I might say, innovative things. So talking about this, we really also put a very important attention to the capacity building to our young generation, I mean, to really develop things. We're fully aware that our maritime resources, the vast maritime resources, is not yet well dwelled or utilized. We still have a lot of economic exclusive zone that we have not really utilized on it. So in that regards, we really work closely with various countries in the region and abroad to really make this area is more utilized for us. Also, last thing I would like to say about this, that now we are developing what we call smart villages. Smart villages, cooperation with the international organization to really develop in these villages the agri-tech innovation. And also we're really keen into develop the urban farming in every sector, meaning that in cities, we try to develop also the, I don't know, the like a farming, like the, what do you call it, the hydroponics, yeah, hydroponics things. Now we can see in the cities more greener to give like the saving or maybe the other resources for our food availability if those kind of, you know, natural disasters happen. That's what I can say for now. Okay.
Yeah, the concept of the circular economy is becoming, you know, more and more the topic du jour, so to speak. And I think we could regard regenerative agriculture as being a part of that complex. Does that figure, Ambassador, in your government's policy in relation to agricultural development? Regenerative agriculture?
And the regenerate agriculture is very important because, you know, the resources is limited. We have to find ways to make the agriculture sector to be circular, so the resources could be used round and round. I can give you an example. We have a model of mulberry, I'm not talking about the cigarettes, mulberry dyke fish pond. For the mulberry trees, it can be used for helping the raising the fish, and also the waste could be used to be feeding the waste from the trees can be using for feeding the fish. So it is circular, it's taking a circular round. And also for southern China, we have a model of rice fish. We raised the duck and also some insects in the paddy fields. So for the insects and also the ducks could be helping to control the pests and also fertilize the soil. So for this kind of agricultural model, we make it to be in a circular round. The resources can be used for different elements in the process. So that is regenerated and also could be lasting for a long time. Yes.
Hayashi-san, have you a similar view on this?
Actually, the word regenerative agriculture is yet uncommon in Japan, but people, especially public officer studying in Europe, is bringing back to Japan the concept. And the same concept is there in Japan, based on the similar concept to direct payment for sustainable agriculture has been enforced more than 10 years ago. And also we support the activity to decrease the use of chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticide. And we set a target to decrease half of the chemical pesticide. and we also increase the organic farming to the 25% of our farmland. It's a very, very big target for us. And simultaneously, we put strength on the Middle East strategy, fostering the innovation, and at one of them, we are conducting the moonshot program for the research for the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries sectors. As the name of the moonshot program, we set the highest target. One of the targets is the circular economy. The agriculture to no zero emission for the in the agricultural area. For example, a new livestock production system aimed at reducing methane emission by 80% through complete control of the cow rumen microbiome is being developed based on the program.
James, you're from a dairy farm originally. Does regenerative agriculture figure in the dairy farmer's mindset in Ireland?
I think it does. You know, it's often an issue of contention. People will know that, being honest about it, from the dialogue in the media. But you know, I often look at the likes of the REP scheme. Of course, there was a strong uptake, and we have acres now, etc. So I think farmers, by and large, are doing their best around issues around water quality. Look, we have a very strong debate ongoing around nitrate irrigation and what the future of farming is going to look like in Ireland. And yesterday we were very lucky to visit Teagasc and Moore Park in my constituency, doing some of the most world-leading research in the area of grassland technology, the work and innovation they do in dairy, and I suppose how you make farming more sustainable. You know, I'm a big believer in, you know, looking at how Irish farming can work on sustainability, particularly when it comes to bringing down fixed costs. Because with I suppose the 2020 programme around the post-quota era, particularly in dairy, so much of that discussion and dialogue was fixated around rapid expansion. And we know, you know, to a certain extent, there is a tipping point of where that crosses the sustainability border. So, you know, you look at energy, for example. You know, we've TAMS grants in place now around solar being put in place. Long overdue that is available to farmers for rooftop solar. I'm also a big believer in, you know, for example, your standard farm of 140 acres, maybe 120 cows of that scale around the East Cork area, which would be very common where I represent. You know, having solar systems in place, or 15 megawatt turbines, for example, providing electricity on those farms to local neighbours as well. And we had this big debate yesterday, what's happening in Cork and across the Golden Vale and other regions that have very strong productive dairy industry in Ireland, is that a lot of farmers are actually opting out of dairy completely and going entirely to solar. The largest farm or largest single herd in the country, which is located in East Cork, they're actually shutting up shop entirely. So I think there is a time now for government to assess how do we make existing farms more profitable. I definitely think energy costs is one of those issues that we can do a lot of substantive work on, looking outside the box. I know we have our esteemed guest here today in Minister Noel Grealish, and you're very welcome to Cork. But things that Cabinet could look at around planning exemptions, I think, around wind. You know, even if you go to the north, I was at a wedding in Donegal just last weekend, and I drove through Tyrone and Fermanagh. Seeing the level of wind generation on site on farms is just so much more common than you see south of the border. And I think that's something I think we have to take stock of, because with the conflict, with, you know, we've seen in the last few days what's happening in the Middle East, we are very much at risk to international circumstance, and where we can, we need to address that. I'm also conscious as well that a lot of younger farmers or young people on farms, they look at the workload involved, and it's something that I think we have to look around automation. We've seen fabulous advances in technology in the last 15 years in robotics, whether it comes to animal feeding systems, whether it comes to automatic milking. There's some excellent centres actually in Mitchelstown. Companies like Lele and Delaval are doing extraordinary work in Ireland, and how that's going to change the labour intensity needs in farming. I suppose you still can't escape the springtime when the calves are being born. But it's certainly something I think government should give focus to. And back to what I said originally, this is Ireland's strong point. You go around the world, no matter where you go, you see Kerrygold products on the shelf as a consequence of the hard work that's done here. And I think that means a lot to the brand Ireland. We've become extraordinarily lucky here with the success, even here in Cork, the pharmaceutical sector and Apple and other companies that we are lucky to host. They are welcome here. But we just can't forget that over the course of decades and years that go by, international policies may change and agriculture will stay and remain. And I think it's important that we support it. And definitely, with the direction of travel in international politics, what I've seen, it worries me. It really does. But in that difficulty and sad reality we find ourselves in, there is an opportunity for the Irish government to be a huge player in helping to secure food security issues. You've seen, just to reference, I was lucky enough to go to Egypt at one point in the last fall term for the International Parliamentary Union Young Parliamentarian Summit. And having to see governments actually sit down and agree food security agreements amongst themselves over the supply of grains and rice, something I wasn't actually aware of. I think that's something that's so far removed from us here in Ireland, we don't even consciously think about it. And I think that can go up the ladder sometimes to a government level. So in that, there is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, now this is going to be very unfair, and I kind of apologise in advance for it. I used to think from time to time that I'd like to be a farmer, but I never had the capital to get involved. And then I looked at all the rules and the regulations. A couple of weeks ago, the Irish Farmers Journal produced this guide, Protecting Payments. It's about the various environmental schemes, rules, regulations, inspections, and so on that farmers have to go through. And this is a summary. There's 47 pages. I was in the Dáil when the first cross-compliance system came out from the Department of Agriculture. And they produced a 36-page booklet. And I made a big drama of this. I was opposition spokesman on agriculture at the time. And I said to the Minister, Minister, this booklet contains 10 pages of the schemes that are designed to help farmers to manage their farms in an environmentally friendly way. And it contains 26 pages of penalties that they'll have to pay if they don't do it right. Are we going to create a problem for ourselves in going about these things in such a detailed way rather than looking at how best to achieve an end result that can be satisfactory? I mean, regenerative farming is fine, but if the costs you have to go through to get there is too big, then it's a losing game, isn't it?
It is, Alan, and you make a very pertinent point. And I suppose what you've seen is, instead, with the increasing numbers of regulations and paperwork involved, is farm consultancy firms. There's just quite a few of them operating here in Cork. But you are right, and for a lot of people that work in agriculture, they do it because of the love of the land, the work that's involved, and the amount of paperwork that you've identified there is hugely significant. I think back even to Ivan Yates' time as Minister for Agriculture, that the Farmers' Charter, how important that was, where there was an agreement that any big change would involve a full consultation with the farming community. And that's something that needs to be watched very carefully at a European level. I worry about the homogenisation of European policy in agriculture. The honest truth is that somebody farming vineyards in France, an agricultural policy versus grass-fed dairy farming in Ireland, and the comparators, and you look at what's going on with Mercosur and the different competing industries within European level. That's a very big difficulty for us. And Alan, I know you'd probably appreciate me saying this, but Ireland has to be so careful of our diplomatic footprint in Brussels From my own experience of being a member of the Dáil now on my second term, I think we certainly need to do more on engagement and making sure that we're encouraging our young graduates from Irish universities to enter diplomatic service in Brussels and in the different European institutions, because we had for so long such a fine crop of public servants that did wonderful work on behalf of the state. So communicating Ireland's message in Brussels, I think, is something as simple as the live calf exports. You know, because Ireland is an island, we have to seek derogations more often than I feel that we do. You know, that simple policy move that could have been implemented last year, it was very heavily fought by a number of our NEPs. And I just want to reference Billy Callagher, who's from Cork, but he did a lot of work on that particular issue because he's from a dairy farming background. But that could have had massively negative consequences for your ordinary farming family in Ireland around how that impacted our industry. So we need to mind that because at the end of the day, you know, we are not connected to the other 26 members of the European Union. You know, we are an island, and with that comes extra responsibility that we're maintaining our trading links. We saw with Brexit what economic impact can have, the exponential rise of connections to the continent with France, and the French government have been brilliant in that. But, you know, all of these things add to the difficulties of maintaining a functioning agri-food industry in Ireland, which is worth billions to our economy annually. I think over 8 billion, I think was the last figure I saw, and contributes to an enormous level of employment, not alone here in Cork, but across the country.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're all keen to develop food security. Ambassador, I've been reading that there's a movement in China to develop very large-scale dairy production facilities. You already have, I think, very large-scale pig production facilities. Is there a concern there with the regulatory requirements of that path of agricultural development?
You mean the pollution?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe in the past, yeah, we have a problem of this in agriculture, but it is changing with the agri-tech, and also lots of measure of improvement is getting better. For the agricultural products, and also for, you know, for some the cooking oil, maybe for the common consumers in the past, they have a concern about the pollution when the products is in the process of producing. That needs the requirements for the government control first. We have like a board beer. I don't know if the board beer have the function of supervising all the process of productivity. Yeah, no, it's just to enhance the selling, just to do the promoting of the business.
Promotion and quality.
Yeah, we have a bureau, a national bureau for the food supervision. They have a very strict regulation on the food processing. And I can tell you that if you check the news, you can find during the last 20 or 15 years, several chiefs of that bureau are sentenced into prison because they are not doing their job better. So the regulations now is very strict from the level of the government supervision first. And then we have developed a system of supervision. In most big supermarkets, you can see a label on every product. It can be you can source the original destination of the producing area, and also you can check the process by just scanning the QR, a barcode. So the technology and the supervision has been improved, and also the concern about the pollution and also about the problems during the processing the product is getting better. And also we have, just like I said previously, we have developed a very active attitude for the international cooperation, because we need to learn from the advanced countries like Ireland. You have very safe food system, and we have learned lots from the European countries and the United States and other countries. So that's our practice in the last years. And don't worry, it's getting better, and it's
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. We've only a couple of minutes left, and Ambassador, you've opened up an avenue that I think we need to look at. When we look at food security, we need to look at global food security. Nobody produces exactly as much as they want of every single product. We all import and export. So trade is a big part of the food security picture. And I'd like to ask each one of you to say if you have any particular point that you'd like to make about trading environments, given the nonsense that's going on today. James, shouldn't we get on with the Mercosur agreement in the European Union and make that part of our contribution to food security? And then, Ambassador, China has taken some interesting steps with Africa, which I think partly touch on food security. I don't know whether Indonesia is looking at trade agreements. We would certainly like to see some trade agreements between Indonesia and the European Union. Equally, we have some agreements with Japan that I think could be expanded on. So, James, could I start with you on Mercosur? Going to get you into trouble now.
Well, it's a good question, and there is obvious merits for the Irish economy in Mercosur. But on the agricultural front, people are right to identify, the overloading of Brazilian agricultural produce into the EU. The ultimate reality, I think, is that beef prices in Ireland, they do fluctuate, and there has been very good years and difficult years. But that concern is right to be, I think, acutely aware. And Ireland's place in Mercosur is one that we need to watch as well, because you're thinking of the different industries in continental Europe, car manufacturing, the other major lobbies within the European Union. And I think we have to watch our own patch there. Now, obviously, Ireland is extraordinarily successful FDI economy and pharmaceutical and other areas that will benefit from doing international trade agreements through the European Union. Recognise that the competency is with them on that, but I suppose as a small country, I think it's something, there's a natural concern there. So I'd be thinking toga boge on that one, Alan.
That's a nice pass by. Ibu Donna, trade agreements, would they figure for you?
Yes, thank you very much, Alan. Well, actually, we are finalizing the Indonesia-EU CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which hopefully can be signed in September. Looking forward a closer relationship with Indonesia-EU, including Ireland in that regards. But Alan, if I may speak about the bilateral thing that we can do together between Indonesia and Ireland. Well, as the minister said, Ireland is excellence in many things, including research and development of many agricultural products, including also the capacity building, and maybe we can do some negotiation on tech transfer, something like that, to develop them. And definitely also to assist us in developing what that I said, the food estate. The food estate, this comprehensive livestock, crops, and fisheries area in Indonesia, because the President Prabowo has already stated that in 2029, we aim to have 49 million acres of crops, of harvest from that area. We built this area in Sumatra, in Papua, and Kalimantan nowadays, so we look forward to having some cooperation maybe that we can consider to really develop this food estate. Sir,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hayashi-san?
Thank you. As I said so far, most of our policy change was the fruit from learning from the EU policy, the direct payment for the ecologically friendly farming, or cross compliance for the payment. And the Middle East strategy itself was learned from the farm to fork strategy of the EU. So our political exchange between EU and Japan will be important, more important than ever. And as you said, Japan-EU economical partnership was enacted in 2019. The trade between two countries and areas will increase and will have good merits for both countries and areas. And to see the not macro but micro levels, the private companies also collaborate with Irish companies, for example, Meiji and Danone. And I met an entrepreneur who is going to make an container plant factory for wasabi. He wants to produce wasabi in Ireland to distribute it in Ireland and the European area. I hope such an bilateral exchange will develop, will increase more and more based on the public and private sectors.
Ambassador, I leave the last word to you. An overall view of the role for possible trade arrangements and agreements?
In the, between our two countries and...
in terms of promoting food security globally.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I agree with you that the food security is a global issue, not a single issue for a specified country. Last year, when we have the FOCAC meeting with Africa in Beijing, we reduced our tariffs, including lots of agricultural products, reduced the tariffs from from least developed countries, which has diplomatic relations with China, reduced the tariffs to 0. And then this year, we reduced the tariffs from all the African countries which has diplomatic relations with China. All the 53 African countries reduced their tariff to 0. But that leads to a problem. Lots of the African products has some problems about the food security. So we have a experience or to be shared here that we in the past and now going on, we send teams to the specific country to help them to resolve the problems of the food security. Like in Nairobi, my last post in Kenya, when we import the fresh fruits like avocado to China, they have the problem of the insects in the products. So we send teams and do some research and also establish some laboratories in Kenya and to help them to erect some factories to resolve the insects problem first. So for the first stage, we import the freezed avocado. And for the second now, we can import the fresh one because we put some technological team there, help them resolve the problem already. So the fresh fruits of the African countries could be imported, exported to China already. And in terms of the agriculture exchanges for the trade between China and Ireland, as just said, we have a large market and the Chinese people are keen on the Irish dairy products. You know, the infant formula, the seafood, and also whiskey. Yeah, last year, I think the whiskey is experiencing a double-digit increase in China. So that's the a increasing market for the world, and we have a like 4 to 6 million, 4 to 600 million middle class consumers. You know, we have 1.4 billion people, and the middle class consumer market is very, very big. And I can tell you that for the 4 to 600 million people, the ratio of the consumption rate, ratio of the consumption to GDP is only 40%. So that is very low. The average percent in the world is over 50, I think, yeah. And according to the estimation, every 1% increase in the consumption rate could be leading to a 1 trillion RMB market. That is 140 billion US dollars. Yeah, it's a very, very big market.
We'd be delighted if they spend all of that on Irish whiskey. I want to thank the panel for bringing us through a number of the concerns that lie beneath the surface of our concerns with regenerative agriculture and food security. Thank you all very much indeed. It's been really illuminating to hear you. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, our panel. I'll ask the panel to stay here for a moment. I just want to link in everything and just remind everyone that the closing keynote later will be EU Commissioner Michael McGrath, and our Chairman Alan Dukes will do the fireside chat after his presentation, which will be the importance of trade and economic security for the European Union. A lot of this focus will be on trade diversification, looking at things like the EU-Japan EPA, which incredibly many people still don't understand the benefits of this, or with Korea, the FTAs with Korea, Singapore, Vietnam. Also looking, as you said, Abudana, at closing the EU-Indonesia CEPA, and we'll be asking Commissioner McGrath about, is it time to restart negotiations on a China-EU financial investment agreement? It's very important. You know, there's a Chinese proverb. You say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And in the Irish language, I'm taking some liberties, but we say, Ní nart go cur le chéile, which means we're stronger together, which is the purpose of what we're all doing in this room today. I do think it's important as well that, you know, what you were saying, Nobu-san, it's incredible. The Japanese community in Ireland now import rice. It was from California. Now it's from Spain. You know, and we have to look, can we grow it here? Because even Irish, I understand from some experts in the area, not me, that Ireland's perfect for growing wakame and nori. You know, we're a seafood nation. You know, we're an island. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we were producing Japanese food in Ireland for the Japanese market, which actually needs more of it? Just to say to everyone then that, Minister, with respect, we have slightly different figures, as always, with GDP, because, of course, there's, what's that expression? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Yeah? But one thing will interest you. About a decade ago, our peer in the UK, they focus very, very strongly. It's a multipolar world. And the UK, with respect in engaging with Asia, is ahead of us. Different history. And about a decade ago, they focused on looking particularly on the trade relationship between Asia and the Middle East, which has become huge. If you look at PIF in Saudi Arabia, largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, 962 billion, I believe, and they put 100 billion of this into their new AI fund. And of course, 3 weeks later, the UAE started AI with OpenAI, and from September we'll have AI free in schools to every student. So there's a different scale of engagement going on, and we forget in the West, the world isn't about Ireland and the UK and America and the rest of Europe. There's a whole world going on there where people ignore us. And most Asian business, with respect, is inter-Asia. You know, in the same way, within Europe, we have earthing. So there's a different world going on out there, and we need to engage it. At our event in Limerick, we had the Saudi ambassador and UAE ambassador, and they were saying very much they want to increase the level of trade with Ireland, but sometimes it's complicated to understand what are the partnership vehicles within Ireland. So we still have a lot of work to be done. Last year in October as well, we had the pleasure of hosting the key policy address of President Tolam, the president of Vietnam in Trinity College in Dublin. And he brought, it was the first state visit, he brought most of the cabinet with him. And they were so impressed by Ireland. And the only thing we put, forgive me, pressure on the president to say is we wanted an announcement. And the day beforehand, we got final confirmation that he formally was willing to say they would open an embassy, because of course, once the president formally says this, the embassy will open. Not putting any pressure on you, Ibudana, but of course, our esteemed president of Indonesia is very welcome to come to Ireland. And in advance, I can tell you in suggested talking points, number one can be commitment to open an embassy of Indonesia in Dublin. But I'm only suggesting this, not as honorary consul, but purely in an Asia Matters row. So look, we've a great program coming later. We're going to break now. I'd ask you to be back sharp at 11:30. There's tea and coffees outside on the right. We have an AgTech Innovation panel chaired by Derek O'Halloran, who's on the advisory board of Asia Matters. Derek is he was the former head of digital economy in the World Economic Forum, with Carl Fitzgerald, Senior Investment Director, Food, Agriculture and Marine, Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, what we call NTMA here, National Treasury Management Agency. Professor Aoife Foley, who's the chair in net zero infrastructure at the University of Manchester, and has the wonderful good taste to live in Cork. What can we say? We've Danny O'Brien, Managing Director, EMEA and Global Programs at SVG Ventures and Thrive, Anita Fury, Food Technologists, seconded from Tagus to be Innovator Campus, and that's based in Galway, and Desmond Savage, co-founder and COO, Moonsist International, which Desmond describes as Fitbit for cows. So that's a great panel. We'll then have a fireside chat on food tourism, which we mentioned earlier. And then one of the really good pieces of news is the growth. It's the beginning of a journey, but the growth of Irish whiskey exports to Asia. I was talking to an expert yesterday, and do you know what he said in simple language? There's a lot of people in Asia who drink whiskey, and a lot more want to drink Irish whiskey. So that's great. And we have a great panel with Oona Cohan, who's with us today, the director of the Irish Whiskey Association, June O'Connell from Skellig Distillery, John O'Connell from West Cork. They now employ, can you imagine, 140 people in Skibbereen. That makes a lot of a difference to a local economy. And as the mayor said last night, he was talking to John before the event, he said, are you worried about the problems in doing business with the US? He said, not at all. We do lots of business with Asia, particularly China, Japan, Korea. Then we have Catherine O'Grady Powers, CEO of Glenkeane Estate Whisky and Glenkeane Farm. And Catherine is an 8th generation sheep farmer. How about that? And Catherine, I commend you and Jem, because during COVID, when the whole world panicked, you had a working sheep farm, all your visitors didn't come anymore. And what did you decide to do? You decided, let's create a whiskey, and we'll hear about that story later. And even better, you decided, let's focus on the Chinese market. Good for you. And then we have Conor Hyde, based here in Cork, owner of Hyde Irish Whiskey, which is a very unique and successful company that blends whiskey. So what I would say to everyone is, if you take a break now, Minister, I know you're under pressure, but could I ask you on the way out, please, to meet with Ibudana, because we didn't have a proper chance to say a quick hello, and I'd ask you, please, to give the Minister the space to do that, because I know you're under time pressure. I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. I'd also like, so if you want to head out for a break, and the panel, if you would stay here and stand up, and we'll take a photo, please. Okay? So if you're back, please, 11:30 sharp, there's tea, coffee, and some food on the right as you head out. Thank you very much.